we are now going to be moving on to speeches, starting with father of the bride, Bruce.
Thank you. Right, me again. Right, okay, so for those of you who don't know I am already, my name is Bruce. And I am Olivia's dad. Or should I say, Mrs. Johnson's dad. So, on behalf of Vanessa and myself, I'd like to start by welcoming you all and to thank you for coming to celebrate this such happy celebration of the marriage of our daughter Olivia to Josh. So, well, we finally made it. I think this is a year on from the original date, and we've had 3 different dates set for this wedding, and we're finally here. And finally we can celebrate in style with Olivia and Josh's family and friends, and it's going to be marvellous. And it's so great that you can all be with us here today, and it just wouldn't be the same if you weren't here today. It would be a lot cheaper, of course, but it just wouldn't be the same. So whilst it's great that we're all now gathered here today, it's also tinged with sadness that Olivia's grandparents, Joyce, Fred, Gwen and Dick, who sadly are no longer with us, can't be with us, but we just wanted to say, well, I just wanted to say how very proud they would be of you today, of the woman that you've grown into, and they would have loved to see how beautiful you are and how happy you are today. Every wedding is special, of course, but to see your daughter get married is something else. Olivia, our walk down the aisle today, this afternoon, is a memory that I shall cherish for the rest of my life. And despite having 28 years to prepare for this speech, I'm still left speechless by how beautiful she looks today. So, Olivia's story began in Alton Towers. Not on the roller coasters, you'll understand, but in a little bed and breakfast just down the road. And 9 months later, she was born in St John's Hospital. Little did we know then that she'd be spending quite a lot of time in a hospital in years to come. I don't know if you know, but my daughter is a doctor. So Olivia's education began in Burnham County Primary School. And it was there that she first got her first doctor's set. I don't know if you remember that. And I've still got it, actually, in the garage. And we all had to be patient, especially poor old Fred. And if he wouldn't play along, she'd smash his head against the wall to induce an injury, and then she could treat him. Yeah, so, occasionally a radiator, I seem to remember as well. It wasn't always a wall, so sometimes it was a radiator. Olivia wasn't always the angelic woman that you see before her today, as she could be quite difficult. That's probably going to come as quite a surprise for you, Josh, but she can be quite difficult, yeah. And if she felt that she wasn't getting enough attention, she would do things to create attention. So there's a couple of stories that I remember on this event. So when Vanessa would be feeding Fred, there was a couple of things that Olivia did. One was, on one occasion, we had a vase that was on a table behind the settee. So Vanessa was sitting on the settee feeding Fred, and the vase sort of just came up and then went along the side of the settee until Olivia appeared at the end of the settee with it in her hand, and then just let it drop, smash all over the floor. And then on another occasion, she just appeared in the lounge, in the lounge, sitting room, whatever it is, and she appeared in the lounge while Vanessa was feeding Fred, pulled her knickers down and just did a wee on the carpet. So there's a lesson for you, George. You know, make sure you give her enough attention or she'll wee on your carpet. So then she was off to Burnham Primary School, where your love for music. This is like you've been framed, sort of. This is your life speech I've got here. So it was at Burnham Primary School where her love for music began. And she was given the part of the school play, which she took very seriously. For those of you who know Olivia, and I'm assuming that most of you do, or you might be in the wrong venue otherwise, but she takes everything seriously. If you give Olivia a job to do, you know it's going to be done well. She takes everything very seriously. She has a face that she pulls when she's concentrating, which is like this. which she still, I don't know what the hand was. Sorry, that hand is irrelevant. But she loves, takes everything very, very seriously. And her part at Burnham County Primary School was to jump off a bench. And we had to watch this time and time again. She's probably even forgotten about it. Jump off a bench and push play on a tape deck to play Dancing in the Moonlight by Top Loader. I still can't hear that song today without seeing her little face going, concentrating. So not long after that, she moved to Heathcote Prep School, where she had a candy-striped blazer and a straw bow tie, which she absolutely loved, didn't it? She loved wearing that. She didn't. She hated it. And it was here that she sat her 11 plus. And she travelled to Westcliff on the day, and the school said, you must wear your school uniform. You've got to wear your school uniform, wear that blazer, you know you love it, put the bow tie on, and go to do your 11 plus. When they arrived, everybody else was in their trendy clothes except Olivia. She was the only one there in her school uniform. Vanessa literally had to drag her out of the car to sit that exam. So after Heathcote, she was off to Newhall. Where she was so lucky to meet such a lovely group of girls, many of which have become lifelong friends and are here today as bridesmaids. Aren't they gorgeous? And as guests. So lucky. What a lovely bunch of friends Olivia's got. And it was here that Olivia began to excel academically and decided that she would like a career in medicine. Have I mentioned my daughter's a doctor? And when she sat at GCSEs, she wore her Superman knickers that her mum had bought her. And she's wore those Superman knickers for every single exam that she's ever sat since. I wouldn't be surprised if she's got them on now. Lucky old Josh. Olivia is very, very superstitious, and when it comes to exams, she's always convinced that she's failed, even though she's never failed an exam in her life. Before sitting her A-level, she was planning on reading biomed at UEA. However, her results were so good, and after much encouragement from her mum, she called UEA and they agreed to interview her to read medicine. Then followed several nervous days until one fateful day we received a call from Ben at UEA to say that she'd been accepted to read medicine. Olivia's hard work and perseverance had paid off. During this time, she was working at Outfit, where she met this chap called Josh. Vanessa was immediately convinced that this could be the one. I, however, was not so sure. As apparently he was a Man United fan and off to Leeds University to read digital media. Whatever that is. Well, let's face it, he's never going to get a job with that degree, is he? You should have read quantity surveying, I've told you. That's a proper degree. So Olivia and Josh worked really hard at their relationship, spending alternative weekends in Leeds and Norwich. And despite this blossoming romance and all of the travelling between those two cities, they never let it get in the way of their studies. And Josh came away from university with a first-class honours degree, and Olivia got a distinction in her Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery, finishing in the top 10% of all of the undergraduates that sat their doctorate that year. Despite me wanting her to go on and become a brain surgeon, which clearly she could have done standing on her head, she had a heart set on becoming a GP. And she did her F1 and her F2 training at Southend and Broomfield, and then moved on to her GP training at Braintree, practice in Braintree, sorry. When she became a senior house officer at Broomfield, she worked in acute medicine throughout the pandemic. And as you can imagine, I could not have been prouder of her. When we were all out on our doorsteps, clapping and banging out saucepans, I was there for only one doctor, and that was my daughter, Olivia. When Olivia sat her final exam this year for her GP exam, she came first out of all of the doctors that sat it, which is an incredible achievement for someone dressed in worn-out Superman knickers and who's been convinced she's never passed an exam in her life. Josh. Okay. So now's the time where I'm supposed to officially welcome Josh into our family. But the truth is, you've been a part of our family since the day we met you. I was lucky enough to go on Josh's stag do and to meet all of his friends. And I must say, a nicer group of lads you could not wish to meet. And yes, I'm including you in that, Lovell. I think you can tell a lot about a man by his friends. After all, they say friends are the family that you get to choose. And I must say, Josh, you've done a fantastic job choosing your family of friends. Perhaps not so well with your in-laws. Saying such as, "What a day," and "This is not a hen do," will stay with me forever. Mind you, Josh, you've not always been my favourite person. So, I got a brand new car imported. I had the first ever Mercedes of this particular style imported into the country. And Olivia and Josh had been out the night before, and Olivia was intent on going to Bluewater the next morning, even though they were both worse for wear. So, me being keen to show my new car off, I said, "No, I'll drive you over there." So Josh and Olivia got in the back of the car and I was heading off around the M25 when I heard this scream saying, Dad, slow down, Josh is looking really ill." So I undid, well, I couldn't actually, I didn't really know, well, this is what I'm saying, anyway, I didn't really know the controls because it was a brand new car. So I couldn't undo the window in time, so Josh was sick all over the back of my car. Yeah. Then I managed to find the button, pushed it down, Josh was then sick all down the side of my car. And then, well, this is the story I've always said, I didn't really understand the controls, so I pulled it up and started strangling Josh in the back of the car. I've just about forgiven him for that. So, Olivia, I hope you know how proud I am of you and how much I love you. I can't imagine anyone better by your side than Josh, and it's a joy to welcome Josh and his fantastic family into ours. From the bottom of my heart, I wish you all the happiness in the world as you begin your married life together. And remember, the secret of a happy marriage is the union of two good forgivers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding with me and raise a glass to the bride and groom, your new Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Cheers. Thank you. Right, all I've now got to do is hand on to my son-in-law, Josh, who will do the next speech.
Can you hear me? Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Bruce, for your kind words. I always knew that was going to be a tough speech to follow, and I was not wrong. Hello, everyone. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. On behalf of my new wife and I, welcome to our wedding. I know I can speak on behalf of both of us today and say it's absolutely incredible to have so many of you here with us today to celebrate. People have travelled from across the country, some even as far as Germany, and I know for a fact that many of you have taken days off work. The lengths that you lot will go to when you hear there might be a free bar. No, seriously, thank you all so much for coming. We both really appreciate it. Now, I'm not going to take too much of your time today, but as is customary with the groom's speech, there are going to be some people I'd like to thank along the way. So if you could all do me a favour, make sure that your drink's topped up and your cheersing hand is primed. And I'll begin. Okay, first I'd like to start by mentioning the fact that there were numerous points over the past year and a half where Olivia and I didn't think a wedding like this today would even be possible for obvious reasons. So in light of that, I'd like to raise my first toast to every person in the room today who works for the NHS and has helped us get out of this mess. You're all brilliant and we don't deserve you. Alright, now on to the people that have helped make today happen. Starting with my rather dapper looking ushers, Mr. Connor Sheehan and Mr. Freddie Benson. Or should I say, Freddie Benassi. Freddie, given your inability over the years to organise a back four on FIFA, I had some question marks over your ability to navigate people to their correct seats today. I'm happy to say though that my fears were completely unfounded. And Connor, quite frankly, you're lucky to even be here today. Given the fact that you decided to snog my poor wife when you were both in year 9. How dare you? No, you've both been brilliant today. We're both looking forward to seeing what moves you've got on the dance floor later. Although, Freddie, if the stag is anything to go by, it would be great if you could keep your shirt on for the duration of the evening. To my brilliant ushers, cheers. Next, Olivia's chief bridesmaid and maid of honour, Miss Felicity Devereaux, Miss Sarah Barrett. If I'm honest, I'm not entirely sure what the difference is between a chief bridesmaid and a maid of honour. Nor am I really sure why you all seem to call yourselves Grape Nut. But what I do know is that you both look stunning today, and you did an absolutely brilliant job at not organising just one, not two, but 3 different hen do's. I know I can speak for Olivia and say that she loved every minute. Well, except obviously the part where she had to witness my mum holding a blown up penis with my face on it in public. And the part where she threw up on herself attempting to down a bottle of EK. Besides that, she loved every minute. Although perhaps not as much as Vanessa Benson. Who by all accounts seemed to enjoy a Mother of the Bride dance a little bit too much. In all seriousness, thank you all so much for being such great friends over the years and for all the effort you put in. You both smashed it. I'd also like to extend my thanks to the rest of Olivia's gorgeous bride squad, aka Miss Molly Tappin and Miss Faye McCarthy. Thank you all so much for keeping the excitement alive and for dealing with what can only be described as a very stressed bride-to-be. I can only imagine what you went through. No, seriously, if you need a therapist now. And last but not least, the person with the nicest accent of them all, Miss Jenny Spindler. The one that got away. Thank you for your brilliant reading earlier. It really meant a lot. I don't think there was a dry eye in the room. So to Olivia's bride squad, cheers. My best man, Mr. Thomas Lovell. The man who has instigated some of the worst hangovers of my life. The man who can make me laugh so much that it hurts. And the man who's thrown me over more fences than I'm proud of. Thank you for organising what was arguably one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. Having to organise 3 stag do's in the midst of a international pandemic requires a combination of patience, attentiveness, organisational skills I have never seen from Tom Lovell. I can safely report, though, on behalf of me and the boys, that he nailed it. Having my best friend hysterically laughing while shooting arrows directly at my face at point blank range whilst nursing a hangover wasn't actually on my bucket list of things to do. But regardless of that, this man made it happen, and for that I'm incredibly grateful. I'm going to avoid being too nice here, as I'm sure there's about to be some character assassination in a few minutes. So I'll conclude by saying this. He may have the most incredibly flat feet you've ever seen in your life, but he has a heart of absolute gold, and over the past 18 or so years, I've been proud to call him my best mate. So to my best man, Mr. Thomas Lovell. Now on to the parents, starting with my new in-laws, Vanessa and Bruce Benson. Firstly, thank you for being so welcoming to me, and thank you for raising such an amazing woman. Bruce, from one Mr. Bean to another. Thank you for being so hospitable over the years, particularly when I decided to throw up in your brand new Mercedes without prior warning on a stretch of road with no hard shoulder. I can only imagine how tempting it must have been to leave me at the next service station. And Vanessa, I'd like to personally thank you for cooking me some of the best roast dinners I've ever had. Sorry, Mum. I must be honest though, I know you were slightly disappointed when you first met me and my friends, and you realised that your daughter was not in fact dating my rather handsome friend, Mr. Jake Ringsell, and had instead opted for the IT geek in the corner with the awkward laugh. Thank you for persevering though, I really appreciate it. Most importantly though, from the bottom of my heart, and I mean this, thank you both so much for deciding to have a rollabout in Alton Towers in 1992. The results have been absolutely staggering. Now on to my mum and dad. Oh, can you feel that? Thank you for being bloody damn good parents. Thank you for the support and advice you've given us over the years and the numerous laughs we've had along the way. You've instilled some values in me that will stay with me for a lifetime, and for that I'll be forever grateful. Dad, on a personal note, thank you so much for passing on your poor hand-eye coordination and the classic Johnson forehead. You didn't have to do that. You didn't. I'd also like to thank you on behalf of the family for not giving up on your barbecues despite consistently burning the food. Year in, year out. I'm sure you'll get there in the end. And Mum, I know this might not be quite as good as a handshake from Paul Hollywood, but for me, you are, and you always will be, my star baker. For those of you who don't know, my mum has become a bit of a Mary Berry over the past year and a half, and it's no exaggeration to say that the Johnsons have, as a result, become a family of cake snobs. Thank you for always endeavouring to put a smile on people's faces. So ladies and gentlemen, please raise your glasses to our wonderful parents. Which leaves one more person. My wife, Olivia. Who, by the way, I'm sure you all agree looks absolutely incredible today. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm not really one for public speaking, nor am I really one for public displays of affection, which is tricky when tasked with writing a groom's speech. So instead of reeling off a list of the usual cliches, I thought I'd instead tell the story of the exact moment I realised I simply had to marry Olivia. Are you ready? We were on a road trip through Germany. And we're about halfway through our journey. It was a gorgeous summer's day, and we had no plans, so decided to just venture out in the car, meander through the Black Forest, and see where we ended up. After about an hour's driving, we stumbled across one of the most serene-looking lakes I've ever seen, where people were swimming and hiring boats. The name of this lake, it transpired, was Lake Titisee. Lake Titty Sea. Remember this name, it has some significance later on. Anyway, we decided to park up, and I managed with some broken German to hire a boat for an hour. We got in, navigated to the middle of this lake, and found a spot where there was nobody really near us, and we could enjoy what was now 32-degree heat in peace. Now, as we hadn't planned this, we had not packed swimming costumes. But with the rising heat and the distance we were away from people, there was only really one option. And after about 10 seconds of persuading, Olivia thought it best to completely strip off and dive straight in. What Olivia hadn't considered was how she might get back onto the boat. It turns out pulling somebody back onto a boat covered in sun cream is incredibly difficult. Particularly when you cannot contain your own laughter. After a few failed attempts and several expletives later, I ingeniously thought the best way to get Olivia back onto this boat would be to throw my belt to her so she could pull herself back up. Unfortunately, this plan had a large flaw. A flaw in the shape of a ferry full of camera-wielding German tourists pulling its horn as it very slowly navigated its way around us. In this moment, I looked into the eyes of my then girlfriend, and I could see the perfect mixture of embarrassment and indifference. And this, ladies and gentlemen, on Lake Titisee, with my nudie future wife clinging on for dear life, was the exact moment I realised that there is nobody else in the world I'd rather be with. In all seriousness, there are many reasons to love Olivia. Her endless thoughtfulness, from her friends to her family and from her patients to me, her devilish sarcasm and wit, the way she pushes me forward in both my life and in my career, the weird faces she pulls when she's hair drying her hair, which Bruce has demonstrated, and her complete inability to fake tan her toes. I could go on. She's an absolutely extraordinary woman who I'm incredibly lucky to have met, and I'm even luckier to marry, and the world is truly a better place with her in it. I may not have the hair of Russell Brand, the body of the guys on Love Island, or the questionable songwriting skills of Ollie Murs. But what I am able to offer is a lifetime's worth of IT support. And I promise you that if you squint hard enough, That is just as good. So please, can we all be upstanding and raise one final glass to my significantly better half, the absolutely stunning Mrs. Johnson. Now on to Mr. Thomas Lovell.
Here we go. Can everyone hear me? You are not going to want to miss this. So, I've spoken to the staff and they've assured me if you enjoy the speech, don't swing from the beams, all right? Stay in your seats and we can work through this. Right? So, firstly, JJ's the first of our crowd to go out and get hitched. So I'm the first one tasked with basically offering one of these piercing best man speeches. So I looked up online and what's the best way to kick these off and how to structure it. Now they said that I should kick it off with a joke. So ladies and gentlemen, Josh Johnson on his wedding day. You can't polish a turd, but you can wrap it in a 3-piece Ted Baker, apparently. No, but seriously, the truth of the matter is, I've seen my old pal JJ go through so much through the years. Unfortunately, none of those fellas could be here today. But Carlos, Fabienne and Klaus do send their regards. It's a busy one down at the sauna, so you get it. So, another common thread in a best man speech is to insert a witty quip about how the groomsmen are supposed to try it on with all the bridesmaids. Now, the fact that you girls look so beautiful today is totally irrelevant. Because I've been on a stag with this bunch of useless losers. I'd say you're probably safe. The only thing these boys are pulling is a hamstring, so you're fine. But going back to our man of the hour. Now, this won't be news to most, but in the 17 years that JJ and I have been mates, I, among a large cohort of us, have always considered him to be best described as a frog. I don't know whether it was his weirdly long salad fingers, was it his distinctly ribbity voice, or is it simply just that your breath smells like pond water? You know, what I do know is that it's pretty defining over the years. But it was back in 2004 that JJ and I met, and I was completely taken back by his complete lack of athleticism. Right? Never before had I seen someone so physically inept and light on their feet with zero physical presence whatsoever. Even a frog can jump, and that's the only characteristic you guys don't share. So obviously, it was a really good thing that we met at a sports college. So yeah, good work. You had a cracking sense of humour for sending him there. But that said, for all of JJ's shortcomings as an athlete and as a future hunter-gatherer, he certainly made up for it by being socially awkward and really good at computers. So, you know, which would you rather? Obviously, it was always going to be computers that he was good at as well. So good with computers, actually, that he was entrusted with the planning, writing and presenting of my IT GCSE. So, you know, Mum and I are still buzzing about that, so cheers to that, guys. Now, I'd love to share stories from our time at secondary school together, but simply put, and this isn't a joke, we didn't like each other. And that's not a joke. Naturally, we still aren't mates now, obviously, but we are more accustomed to each other's company, I'd say. Kind of similar to the smell of your own fart, in that objectively you know it's bad, but you kind of like the smell of it anyway. But somehow we got through school and we made it to sixth form, and this is when our friendship really started to blossom. JJ passed his driving test, and you couldn't catch us outside of a McDonald's drive-through blaring the same Death of Anna song on repeat for 18 months straight while flicking the bird to innocent drivers that had given us right away. It's the kind of rough riders we are for you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this does actually bring me to some of the only dirt that I have on someone as annoyingly clean as JJ. His only run-in his life with the fuzz came as a yogurt slinging 17-year-old. Now, I don't mean that in the sense that some of you are going to be thinking at the minute. I mean quite literally hurling yogurt out of his car at passers-by. It's disgusting, really. But through this hardship of these formative years brings me to the introduction of the main protagonist in JJ's woefully boring existence. And here we have the gorgeous bride, Miss Olivia Benson. So, as Bruce mentioned earlier, they met at Outfit in Chelmer Village, and simply put, she's been picking his ever since. But Liv Ben was a welcome bit of spice to drag JJ out of his shell. She was everything he wasn't. She was intelligent, she was funny, with beauty to boot. And on top of that, as Bruce mentioned, did you mention it once that she was a doctor? I didn't mention. But she saves lives for a living. It's incredible. She's the full ticket, and that's why I was absolutely buzzing to go on the stag with her dad and brother. And what an absolute pair of fucking cowboys they turned out to be. What happened there? She must get it from you, Vanessa, because she didn't get it from these fucking boys. Now, I could go into what I learned on the stag. It could literally be a speech on its own. But what I can say is that we were collectively disappointed that it only took 15 minutes for us to set the fire alarm off at the hotel. We'll work on it next time. But Chatham House rules apply for the stag, but I will share my top takeaway, that even on his own stag do, JJ was still the last guy to be picked for the football team. Now, to bring this to a close, I will end this on a nice note for him. So, when I had my first sales interview in London as a young 20-year-old whippersnapper, about halfway through the interview, the sales director leaned into me and he asked me a couple of piercing questions. The first was what my mates thought of me. Now, we'd all like to write our own reviews in that instance, but in order to be honest, I had to tell him exactly what it was, and it wasn't cool. But the second was, which of my friends do I respect and why? Now, after no deliberation at all, I said JJ. Now, for anyone that knows JJ, once you scratch past the socially awkward, kind of prepubescent exterior, what you have here is one of the most complete men that you could possibly wish for. Hard-working, smart, and someone that you can absolutely lean on 100% in times of need. I say this with complete confidence that I'd be absolutely lost without your love, your support, and your guidance. So thank you, mate. To the Johnsons, all I can say is Josh is a testament to his upbringing that he's received, and I can only imagine how proud you both must be today. And to the Bensons, you're about to inherit a solid one into your ranks, even if that does mean that your future grandson is going to be quiet on sports day. But fingers crossed, let's hope he takes after his mum. But to the rest of you, I want to remind you something before proceeding into a heavy night of drinking and questionable dancing, in that this is not a fucking hen do. Cheers all. Yeah. To Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Cheers. You can stop your timers now. Where are we at? I know we've got a 740 in the house.